Hello, hello, hello. You're listening to Midnight Movie Gang. It is currently 7:23 p.m. Night Movie Gang. My name is LC Hines. I'm here with my buddy Jack.
Hello.
Hi. Today we're continuing on our theme, or I guess this is our regular thing is that we do movies that have the same titles. Because the last episode,
Yeah, it just makes things easier.
yeah, it just makes things. Next time, I really want to do Project X, 80s Monkeys Project X, and Party Movie Project X. With
I completely forgot that movie existed. I'm gonna be honest.
yeah,
That's one. Miles Teller's in that, right?
yeah, Miles Teller is in that as a fictionalized version of himself, and he talks about unlimited high school pussy in the movie. So that's his own thing. So today we're gonna be talking about Labyrinth and Pan's Labyrinth. Oh, and by the way, for people just tuning in, if this is your first episode, Midnight Movie Gang is a show where we talk about kind of cult classics, cult cinema, genre cinema, kind of like lesser known stuff is what we try to focus on. Today we're talking about Labyrinth and Pan's Labyrinth. Both really the same movie, honestly, when you get down to it. Jackie, still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Rock and roll said network struggling for a bit. Same movie. They're both just about young women who don't like their step parents and have to go through a maze and fight magical creatures in order to save their stepbrothers from a super mean person. Really,
That's a good point about the Step Brothers. I didn't even think about that.
Stepbrothers and step parents they don't like. I saw a lot of like, damn, there's a lot, and they also both like just really like fantasy shit. Like they're both really.
That should be our next episode that we do together is Step Brothers and Step Parents. There's got to be a movie called Step Parents out there.
100%. It's got to be Stepbrothers, Step something. But yeah, I had not seen either of these movies. I've lied to a lot of people about seeing both of them, and I feel a little ashamed of not having seen Pan's Labyrinth because I consider myself such a Del Toro fan. But I definitely have some gaps in his filmography from him. He's definitely like one of my favorite directors working now, but I definitely still need to see. I still need to see Devil's Backbone. I still need to see Nightmare Alley, and I also need to still see Crimson Peak. And like honestly, the only reason that I didn't see Crimson Peak is because somebody spoiled it for me, like spoil the twist. And I'm excited about his Frankenstein. That's gonna be good.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the Frankenstein. He was jumping in on. That's has that been cast yet? Or
yeah, bro. We got the whole Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster, Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein. They're both father like son. They're both so hot.
I was gonna say this is like. I can't wait for every single Saltburn fan to just simp over this movie. I just can't wait.
Mia Goth, yeah, this is a sexy cast.
Whoa, look at that. Lars Mikkelsen, too. I don't know who he is, but I like the name.
Never heard of that guy before. Charles Dance, fucking ironic.
Oh, dude.
So Charles Dance came up a lot in our last episode because the episode coming out. So as of today, we're recording on Monday, October 12th. The episode for this week is me and Joseph talking about Alien 3 and Alien 4. And Joseph was like, where the fuck do I know the Doctor from in Alien 3? And I'm like, it's Tywin Lannister.
The best part of Game of Thrones is a doctor in a somewhat minor role in
yeah, pretty
Alien
much.
3.
Well, that was like one of his, I don't think it was one of his first roles. It was probably one of like his first like roles in like a movie that it wasn't even an American production, it was a British production, but
Wasn't he in The Last Action Hero? I'm trying to remember if
he was like the henchman assassin dude with the fake eye. And his first acting credit on Wikipedia is For Your Eyes Only. But yeah, dude, he was Mr. Benedict in Last Action Hero.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I completely pulled that out of my ass. I can't believe
I forgot about that one too. Who the fuck is he in Euphoria? Oh, the movie there we go. The comparison. We'll do Euphoria and the movie Euphoria.
What is that movie?
I don't know. We're just looking on Wikipedia, folks. People look. Eva Green, Alicia Vikander. Oh my god. Try not to read the wiki. I've never heard of this movie. I'll just put a pin in that for later. Anyway, so Jack, I wanted to ask you, what is your personal? I guess I would like to start with Labyrinth 1986. and
Yeah, definitely.
1986, which is a 1986 musical fantasy film directed by Jim Henson, with George Lucas serving as executive producer, with starring Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie's
Hmm.
package. Um,
Oh my
the
goodness gracious, we got to talk
the
about his package,
the
dude.
Bowie bulge. It was
And to add, written by Terry Jones, which I did not realize until getting ready for this episode, which
that
makes
does
so
make a
much
lot of
sense.
sense as far as like all the medieval jokes. But yeah, no. So tell me about
Hmm.
your personal theory of this film. When you first saw it, what you're like, how? Tell me about it.
I don't know. This one was. I had this grand story about what's it called? What was the room? I don't really have one. This one just. I always knew that I watched
Mm-hmm.
it at one point. I never really actively watched it until I was like back home from college one weekend, and somebody brought up David Bowie, and we were we were having fun in a
Uh
very
huh.
specific sense, so we
Uh
decided
huh.
to throw
Great
it
movie
on.
for that kind of fun. Yes.
And naturally, like as soon as I like revisited it, because I remember I watched it with I started watching it with my girlfriend a few months ago, and turning it on again now, I love love love
Mm.
love love this movie for so many different reasons. But it's a movie that I can see myself revisiting next week if
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to.
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's definitely a movie that I want to take another look at. Just because, like I said, this is definitely a movie that I would have loved to have seen not sober. But there's a lot that I really like. I gave it 4 stars out of 5 on Letterbox. There's a
Mhm.
lot that I really liked about it. Um, there was something. Oh yeah, no, something about this movie. See, I hadn't seen it, so there is another movie out there that I don't remember like what it's called, and I don't remember that many things about it. But there was a movie I saw when I was a little kid that was like another puppet type movie. It maybe it's Dark Crystal. I got to look at clips of that. Also directed by Jim Henson. Which this is kind of considered
Mhm.
like a loose, like kind of spiritual successor of that movie.
Yeah.
It's like there's like these like bird people, like bird puppets, and they kidnap like a little boy, and there's like there's like a girl that has to go in and like fight the bird people. It's a movie of
Mhm.
this era that I remember seeing and it fucking terrifying me as a little kid. And I can't for the life of me. And I thought it was Labyrinth for the longest time. And
What about Return to Oz? I don't know why the description sounds like what a lot of people talk about when they talk about Return to
Return
Oz.
to Oz. No, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's like it's I think it's like 90s. Like it's in the same part of my head as like, yeah, I don't see any bird people in these clips either. But it's in the same part of my head as like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, because there's some science. I remember there's some like sci-fi elements. Like one of the kids is like an inventor or something. Like it has like a little wacky lab. It's not the Explorers with River Phoenix and Ethan Hawke. Um,
It's not Dexter's Laboratory, I swear, even though that one got me. I don't know
it's not
why.
Dexter's Laboratory.
For no reason, I hold Dexter's Laboratory in the same vein as Courage the Cowardly Dog, as like screwed up like TV shows,
Yeah.
but they're so different. I don't know what was going through my brain when I was
I
like
think they're
4.
both Gendy Tarkovsky. Yeah, I know for a fact that Dexter's is, and
Hmm.
fucking Courage might not be, um, but yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, anyway, with this, yeah, so it wasn't that movie, and yeah, overall, I guess we can start breaking into the plot of it. So yeah, I didn't really have a whole lot of knowledge about where this was gonna go. So this movie opens with Jennifer Connelly in this like very European countryside looking park, and she comes out wearing like this Renaissance fair like dress, and she's like doing this like reading this line from this book, and I didn't know like. I was a little bit confused in this opening because I was like, "Oh, I thought that she was like in the real world and she gets sucked into the fantasy world." I didn't know we were starting in it. Um, and
Well, before you get to that, we need to talk about the real opening of the movie, which is the opening title call with the
oh
owl.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the most 80s bad CGI owl you will ever see in your entire life. It just flies. It's like a screensaver from like a Microsoft from the 80s, but he's just kind of dingling around on the screen with a black backdrop and David Bowie's crisp. It's another David Bowie song. Hold on, let me.
Yeah, no, the soundtrack in this movie fucking kicked ass. That was probably my favorite thing about it. I'm looking up the opening credits to remind myself. First, there's a Kamala Harris ad. Gotta wait for it to take over. Oh yeah, no, and it starts on his like fushigi ball, because David Bowie just has like a bunch of fushigi. Like when me and Courtney were watching this movie, every time he like whipped out like another like crystal ball, we just went fushigi.
That's not the only thing he was almost going to whip out.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to
Whipping
get
it
to
out
that.
on 16-year-old Jennifer Connelly. I don't know why. Weird transition, but have you ever seen the movie Career Opportunities or like heard of it? So
No,
the basic premise of it is like it's like a 90s kind of coming of age. I'm pretty sure it was written by John Hughes, but it wasn't directed by him. So it's basically there's this guy. He's not a kid. He's like in his mid 20s, who like lives with his parents, and he doesn't really have like an aim in life. And he gets a job working at Target as the like overnight janitor. And he's on his first like night working, and he finds out that Jennifer Connelly like basically like hid in the dressing rooms in Target, and him and Jennifer Connelly like get to know each other. It's a little bit of like it's trying to be a Richard Linklater type vibe. And she's gonna like run away from home because her dad's an asshole, and they decide to run away together. And it's kind of like one of those like they're sitting around flirting the whole movie type deal. And the movie sucks, but
Preface that by saying the movie. This movie's terrible, but
and I'll say this because like she was in her 20s during filming, and also the character is in her 20s. In fucking I gotta find specifically in Career Opportunities, Jennifer Connelly is a babe.
Oh, I've definitely seen this poster.
You've seen this poster. She's just in this tank top the whole movie, and there's a scene where she's riding like the horse. Like literally, that's the only reason to watch it.
It's just
her on like the what's it called? I'm reading the names of those things, like the coin-operated mechanical horse. Yeah. And that's pretty much the whole movie. Is just this nerdy fucking dude, which we know the actor who plays the nerdy man. This guy, I forget his name, but you've seen him in shit. This dude, I'm showing you the picture.
He looks like okay. I do know this. I'm gonna look this up because I was gonna try to guess it, but I don't want to sound like an asshole. It is
definitely
Frank
Whaley.
Sound
like an asshole. Yeah.
I know this. He is a person I know. No, it's Frank Whaley. That's his name. He's in Nothing I Know. He's in The Doors.
He's Brett from Pulp Fiction. That's where I know him from. Yeah.
Wait,
he's
what?
Brett. He's
Hold
Brett
on.
from what? Say what?
You say what? One more guy. Oh my God, that's actually him.
Yeah, it is. Okay, that's. I think that might be literally the only other thing I know him for. Oh, he's in Luke Cage. Okay. Maybe the only other thing I know him from, but it makes sense because I've seen that scene like a million times, so that tracks. Anyway, so yeah, we get that really bad CG open, and there's a lot of bad blue screen in this movie, but we'll get to that. And basically, yeah, she's doing this like poem, this speech, this passage, and she's like can't remember the last line. And she has a bit of a. It felt very Back to the Future to me, where she's like, "Oh no, it's getting late," or like, "Oh no, I'm gonna be late." And I thought it was a Back to the Future, like, "I'm gonna be late for school, damn it, Doc." Was definitely the vibe that I was getting from it. But yeah, so she runs home with her really cute shaggy dog, and it's raining, and the dog gets all dirty, and she's all soaked, and her stepmom, who fucking sucks.
Dude, we gotta talk about in both these movies that we're talking about today, the parents and the adults. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, both the parents. Her dad also sucks, and I guess so does Ophelia's mom in Pan's Labyrinth as well. Just in terms of like not really being a super present parent. But yeah, no, she's just like such an asshole to this girl. Like one makes the dog go in the garage. where it's probably going to be cold and it's still going to be wet. But the dog's name is Merlin, which right there is another little fantasy. Like, oh, this girl loves fantasy shit. Um, and yeah, so you kind of see her argue with her stepmother. You see her, and she kind of like storms off to her room, and she's like forced to babysit her younger sibling. And I guess at this point, I wanted to ask you what you think about, because at this point we kind of learn what we need to know about the basis of Jennifer Connelly's character. What did you think of her performance in this movie?
She's definitely she's definitely a child actor in this movie. She's given a lot to do, which is interesting because it's not just like dialogue heavy. Obviously, she's the main character, but it's also like kind of like a physical performance. Like she's running a lot. I mean, granted it's a movie, but like she's dodging a lot of traps. She's interacting with a lot of sets. Like it's not like a boring first performance or one of their first performances, but ultimately like she does fine. I mean, I wouldn't call any of the performances in this movie like best actor or actress worthy, but she does what she needs to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree in the sense that, like, yeah, like, in this opening, I kind of found her character unlikable at first. Like, the way that she was just kind of, like, well, the way she's just kind of, like, it feels like she projects a lot of her anguish about her living situation in her giant multi-million-dollar house mansion.
Oh, the tragedy!
Yeah, just the
My
worst.
goodness.
Onto her little brother, like, who's a baby. And
Who's a
who's
literal
a literal
baby.
baby who she just like is fucking like she's just dumping onto like all of her frustrations about like her teen angst, and I'm just like, oh, come on, like, you didn't do nothing. But then I remembered, like, yeah, well, she's a teen, so it makes sense that she feels like this. Plus some
Yeah, it doesn't really feel like an unrealistic like bad person, and also to think about like it should, yeah, she's just a teen and she's frustrated, and like if you think about like the little incantation she does to get the baby away, like like from the context, it's literally just some teen like in her head saying, "Oh man, I want to escape" or whatever. But then of course that turns on its head a little bit. The monkey's paw curls and the baby's
yeah.
gone.
But yeah, so she wishes her little brother away, and then like a bunch of goblins like poke their heads in, and this is like when definitely like once the effects started happening and once we saw the puppets, and like there's like a fun sequence where the goblins are like waiting for her to say the magic words.
I love that scene so much. That might be one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It just the Jim Hensonisms are so on display, and it kind of like nails you in the head right first, because it's not just like one; it's like 50 puppets in the screen ready
Yeah.
to burst, and it's so much in your face. I love
Yeah,
that.
it really is like such a quantity thing in this movie too, because it's like the puppet work itself is amazing, and then just like the amount of different puppets and puppet performers they had on screen all at once was just incredible. And like, Courtney was saying, like, while we were watching it, like, nowadays it would all be CGI. like
Yeah, nowadays it's just there's so much time and effort like this, and also when we talk about Pan's Labyrinth, there's so much detail. There's so much care and effort into every single one of these puppets, and each of them have their own little personality. When we get to the when we get to the my favorite green screen scene with
the fire gang or whatever.
yeah, they all are just like all of them have different eye sizes. They both move differently. They all move differently.
They're all very
damn.
well designed. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Fucking yeah, I don't know if you've seen a few days ago the Disney's like Expo D23 or whatever. One of the trailers that dropped was the trailer for the Rachel Zegler Snow White movie. And like it's so CGI heavy, and like all the dwarves are CG, like running around her and stuff. And I'm just like, God damn, like this just doesn't feel alive whatsoever.
Let me just. I want to see these dwarves now. I actually didn't.
Yeah,
know
no, a
that.
bunch of stuff leaked, and then there was some stuff that was like released. Like there was they released like the first look at the live action Stitch, because they're doing a live action Lilo and Stitch. Yeah,
What?
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, these dwarves look like shit.
The Lilo and Stitch one though, I want to show you real quick. I think he looks fine. And they got the same voice actor back. Like, yeah, this is the teaser one.
That looks
Yeah.
a lot better. Okay, because they actually embraced
Yes.
the absurdity of
Yeah, especially
Stitch.
in motion. Yeah, they're using motion. Like, I think they got like I think it's a nice blend between the cartoon design and like as far as the texture goes, like it's got a good amount of realism. Um, Plus, like I said, like I have the volume muted, but it is the same voice actor as the original, so he sounds right.
It's low-key giving me vibes of Aragon, the Dragon Saphira
Yeah,
as a baby.
I definitely see that. I was definitely expecting fucking first iteration Sonic, ugly Sonic.
No. I forgot, but the internet literally bullied a movie into being
Exactly.
a better movie. I will. Just can we talk about that real quick? What a concept! Just how everybody can shit on something so hard and people actually
Yeah.
listen to it. Like, what a wild idea! People taking criticism. That's
That's
insane.
like pre Snyder Cut level, like like because the Snyder Cut was forced into existence. But that was the first time that like the fans really like willed something to be. Although I heard a conspiracy theory that that whole thing, like ugly Sonic, like was a ploy by the studio to get attention. Like as in like they had the original Sonic, like the Sonic design that went within the movie was already done, and they're like, nobody's gonna pay attention to this. We should make an ugly Sonic model to get people pissed off, and then redeem them and win them back by dropping our like actually good Sonic that we already had.
Not gonna lie, like 4 years ago, I wouldn't have believed that, but I'm so cynical now. It just makes
They
way
could
too much
100% do it.
sense.
But then yeah, I've only seen the first Sonic movie, and I remember specifically it was like back in college with me, Corey, and like a lot of the UPEC squad. We went to Dave and Buster's beforehand and got fucking hammered at Dave and Buster's,
Hell
and then
yeah.
we went to go see the Sonic movie. And it was a
That's
blast.
perfect. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Keanu Reeves is supposed to play Shadow the Hedgehog, and then Hedgehog in the next
Yeah,
movie.
the voice talent they get for that. Since they got Idris Elba for Knuckles. Yeah.
Which is awesome. Give me Idris Elba in literally anything, and
Knuckles isn't supposed to be hot. That's the issue. Why are you making me want to fuck Knuckles? Fuckles. That's the new.
Fuckles.
That's the new Sonic creature.
The news, it's just the next poster is just Rule 34 of Knuckles. Oh no, nah. We need to get off this topic now. I'm thinking about Knuckles being
Fuckles the
sexy.
big hog. Anyway,
Oh my.
yeah.
Move on. Move on.
So David Bowie pops up in the window. Yeah, the goblins take the baby off screen. She leaves the room for a second. And the goblins take the baby. She goes back in, and there are like goblins around her room hiding. And I love them just like popping out of corners and shit. And then David Bowie comes into the screen. Comes in.
Forget about
Forget
the baby.
about the baby, my dear. What does he say to her? Like I said, I just watched the movie for the first time last night. So, yeah, he appears, offering Sarah her dreams in exchange for the baby. Yep. So then he takes her into the Labyrinth world. What is like a pretty cool design as far as like she's on top of this hilltop looking over the labyrinth,
Yep. It's interesting because we talked about the CGI a second ago, but it's not entirely just a CGI mess. Like there's a lot of really great set design in this movie, especially the scenes where she's running the labyrinth, in Jareth's throne room. Even that first shot enter the dream world, like this beautiful like orangish red background. The lighting's done really well, and there's a lot of thought put into every scene in this movie, especially for
there's a lot of good matte painting, like extensions, type of deal, and I definitely felt the George Lucasisms in terms of how a lot of the effects were handled. As far as like it was kind of like there was a lot of like really the only terrible blue screen scene, or I say terrible, like the only super noticeable blue screen scene for me was the fire gang scene.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
And like outside of that, for this kind of movie, I feel like in this era, matte paintings were really the way to go, and especially because like they have so much detail in the foreground elements that like you're not really paying attention to the background that much. Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, speaking of the foreground, can we talk about David Bowie's performance for a minute? Because I wanted to say I just watched I forget what Lindsay Ellis video it was. It was probably one of the Lord of the
Mm-hmm.
Rings videos, but she mentioned David Bowie's interest in playing Elrond,
Mm.
Elrond of the Lord of the Rings movie. So considering like that, like I was like I remember watching this pretty much right after I watched that video, and it would make so much sense. Like I love
Hugo Weaving,
I think
yeah.
it's Hugo Weaving. I love Hugo Weaving, but there's like definitely a
Mm-hmm.
stoicism to him. Like just seeing David Bowie just totally embrace the absurdity and just he looks like an elf. He looks like he just looks like a he fit. It looks like he fits in this world. I'm not saying that Hugo Weaving doesn't, but there's like a certain like mysticism to this character that maybe doesn't
Oh,
wouldn't fit in the.
100%. David Bowie has the appearance and vibe of a mythical creature that just stumbled into our world. Um, as far as him being Elrond in, it's funny you bring up Lord of the Rings because I was going to bring up Lord of the Rings a lot in Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Um, yeah, I feel like if they made like an earlier iteration of Lord of the Rings that wasn't animated, like they have the Ralph Bashki '80s Lord of the Rings, which
Yeah.
that could be. I've never seen those, so that could be just a fun episode to do in general. Um,
I haven't seen those in a while. The only Ralph Bakshi movie I've seen is Fritz the Cat, and oh god, I don't know if I can handle watching that movie again.
I've
Oh, have you
I've
seen
heard
that
of
or
it,
heard
but
of
I've
it?
not seen it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's exactly what you've heard.
yeah.
It's obscene.
But yeah. So I feel like David Bowie wouldn't necessarily fit in Peter Jackson's version of that kind of thing, where it's like
Yeah, which
the
is
only
fair.
other performance I think I'm pretty sure the only other acting performance I've seen of Bowie thus far in a movie is when he played Nikola Tesla.
Yep,
And
I was just about to bring that up.
yeah,
He
he
was
was great
awesome
there,
there.
but he was still kind of like a bit of a jokester. Like he doesn't have like a super serious kind of energy, and I feel like that's what they were going for with that iteration of Elrond in Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Which is fair, yeah. You're forgetting about his
Oh
Zoolander
yeah.
cameo where he was the juror on the
Yes.
walk off, which is such a great cameo for I don't know what it's the one that sticks with you the most because it's the most like yeah David Bowie would do that thing I've ever seen. It's that's that scene has like my favorite cameos ever. Billy Zane, don't mess with Billy Zane. He's a cool dude.
Yeah. I haven't seen Zoolander in so long. I like barely remember much from it. Um, but yeah, no,
Back to
it's
the
all
movie.
good.
Sorry.
So yeah, she's in the labyrinth. Jareth gives her 13 hours, which, by the way, in my head canon, the fucking labyrinth world works off of a 26-hour rotation because we see a bunch of clocks there, and they all are like 13 is the top.
Yeah, that's a good detail. I
Yeah,
didn't pick
like
up
the
on that.
clock in Jareth's like throne room is like it's a regular clock, but it goes 13 instead of 12. So yeah, so Jareth gives her 13 hours, and then if she doesn't go through the labyrinth in time, then he turns Toby into a goblin. And then Sarah meets Yoda. I mean Hoggle. Um, meets a dwarf who's out there catching fairies. And I like the fairy biting her type deal, just so it's like a bit of a darker fantasy world.
Yeah, both these movies that we're gonna talk about there, they definitely play off of fantasy tropes, and they show like the dark reality of what some of these fantasies are based off of. Like fairies in both are just
Exactly.
disgusting.
Yeah. After I watched this movie, last night, I did like watch a couple of like reviews from people and a couple of breakdowns, and like there definitely seems like there's a contingent of people who thinks that this movie isn't particularly child friendly in terms of like how scary some of the designs of the creatures are. And like I don't know, I think it's one of those things where like looking at this movie, this is definitely a movie that I would have been scared of as a kid. Like I
Yeah,
was
oh
not
yeah.
very much about like kind of, but it was something that like there's a balance of like making it scary for kids, but then kids are supposed to kind of look at stuff that scares them, and like they kind of return to it, and like the more they learn about it, the more like I don't know. I feel like it rides the line being really well as far as like yes, it's a movie that would give me nightmares as a little kid, but it's something that I would want to return to and like check out, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna sound kind of dumb, but I mean, it's a big difference between a kids movie and a family movie. I just think that I don't know. A lot of what sticks with you when you watch those older movies are the scenes that are a little bit more horrifying, just for lack of a better word. Like the ones that actually elicit the emotions are the ones that stick with you the most, and that's just like this whole movie with the design. Like it's so
Yeah.
out there, and it's so not like whatever you've seen
Yeah,
when you
it
were
is
younger,
such a
maybe.
flip of like one of the reviews I watched described this movie as like Princess Bride on fucking ketamine.
It's Sesame Street on heroin.
Exactly.
Meth.
Like I'm a big fan of like how crusty a lot of like Didymus. Like Didymus is my favorite character, 100%. Sir Didymus. Because he's just like this
Didymus.
crusty little guy, and like I think that's a bit of the George Lucas elements in there too, because like everything is kind of dirty. Like the how dirty everything felt and how lived in the world feels helped it not feel like it's like a styrofoam set. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
kind of like how I love Princess Bride. Don't get me wrong, but like a lot of, and I think it's purposeful as far as like what they're going for in that movie. But that movie to me doesn't feel like they're in a real world. It feels like they're like at a Renaissance fair type deal, you know. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's something for me that's kind of hard about fantasy in general. Like a lot of this kind of like fantasy is hard for me to get into because it can feel kind of hokey. And this movie to me doesn't nearly feel as hokey, and a part of it is because of how strange and dirty and crusty things feel. Because in real life, things are
Yeah.
crusty, so like it helped me. It helped me buy into the world and be more comfortable in it. Is what I'm trying to say.
That's well put. I mean, a lot of those like fantastical like movies that just are very like sterile, stylized, without that element of grime. It is gonna sound like it eliminates the realism of it, and I know it's like a fantasy that we're discussing, but it doesn't. As you mentioned, it feels less realistic, and you just don't get into it as quickly as you can. Completely off topic. I just remember something I was doing research on after I watched the movie. Toby, the guy that plays Toby, or the baby Toby, he grew up and actually became a puppeteer for Guillermo del
Oh
Toro.
wow.
Yeah, he's credited as a puppet sculptor in Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So it all comes full circle. He's also worked on a lot of cool stuff. He's worked on Kubo and his
Oh
Two
wow, yeah,
Strings.
like a big stop motion guy. Yeah, Paranorman. Wow, cowboys and aliens. Yeah, no. Folks at home, sign up for the Patreon to listen to our commentary of Cowboys and Aliens.
This is actually the most creative Patreon plug I've ever seen.
What?
This is the build up. It's like, funny enough, this guy just happened to be working on a movie that we did a Patreon
yeah,
release.
So fucking check it out.
We just watched these movies for a Patreon
Yep,
plug.
see
Have a
ya.
good night, guys. Bye bye.
But yeah, no, that is pretty sick. Oh yeah, I did see that they made a Dark Crystal, or Dark Crystal remake. I gotta check and see if Dark Crystal is the movie that I'm thinking of. Oh, you know what? I think it might be the movie that I was talking about earlier. Look at these. I think I remember these bird guys.
Yeah, that would freak me out too if I was.
Yeah, and I
if
remember
was
these
little.
weird fucking faces. Oh god, yeah, this is terrifying. I'm saying back to Labyrinth. Let's talk a little bit about Hoggle. She meets Hoggle. Instantly, I was like, I know this fucking voice somewhere. Just like his cadence of speak. And we looked it up, and right enough, it was Frank Oz.
Yep. His peak, and it's interesting because I was having a discussion with somebody about Robin Williams as the genie, like just thinking about how distinct someone like he is just as the character. I mean, Frank Oz, but that's like attributable to Frank Oz as everybody. Like obviously Yoda's the big one, but I can't think of a time where I just didn't hear his voice in a movie and didn't, even if they're so different, just didn't immediately recognize him.
Yeah, no, he just like it's just so obvious. Like he has this for me it's just like his kind of rhythm of like going up and down in pitch. Like when he gets excited about something he goes, you know, kind of deal. Just that vocal fry. But yeah, no. I'm trying to think if I know who was he in Inside Out. He was a guard. In Inside Out. Interesting. But Yeah, no. So they meet Hoggle. She has like a little bit of a chat with Hoggle. Let's see, and then what happens after she meets Hoggle?
Well, there's a scene
Um,
where did we get to the scene with the two guards yet, or is that a little
the two doors.
the two doors? Yeah.
It's a little bit later.
Okay.
We can kind of go through. She is in the maze. Hoggle brings her into the maze, and he's like, "See ya. This is as far as I'll take you." And she walks down for a while. She runs into a worm with a Cockney accent.
Oh, I love that one. What's oh?
I love that worm too. I don't remember if that worm has a name.
It's not Philip, is it? I don't know why I thought Philip. What's it? Oh, it's just the worm, right there.
Yeah. Oh, did I skip it? Just the worm.
Yep.
Yeah, the worm. Timothy Batson. Yeah, no, just he had just like this. He sounded like fucking what's his name? When me and Cordy were, it sounds like Butcher, because he's just like, "Oi, I'm worm. Homelander done took me bloody wife.
Yui.
Anyway, I'm sorry, Sarah." Fucking David Bowie done took your bloody brother and stole the bloody crystal.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so she talks to this worm. This is funny, and tells her that like, oh, things aren't always what they seem, and there's like a fucking perception filter on one of the walls or whatever, and like she can basically walk through it. And that gets her to like kind of the next step of the maze. And then she runs into the doors, one of which always tells the truth, one of which always tells the lie. And she pulls the. You know what's funny about this? Like I saw this referenced in Adventure Time, like this specific bit reference, and I knew what the thing was. Like you ask what the other door would say about a door, right? And I know that was the thing, but my brain, I'm not smart enough. I don't get how it's.
It takes me like a minute or two to like process it, like the guards there, but it's okay. That's okay. She ends up going to certain death anyways.
Yeah, she runs into the grabby hands from Ghostbusters,
which is an awesome scene. I love just the design of all the gloves and how they're all coordinated, not just the ones that are making faces like at one moment.
Indeed. Yeah, the faces were really unsettling. That was like a very visually interesting scene. And then she gets thrown down in the oubliette, in the dungeons, below the labyrinth, and she runs into Hoggle again. And during the whole time, like kind of while we're following her through the maze, it cuts back to the Goblin King, David Bowie, hanging out in his castle. And I think the best song in the movie happened during this time.
Yep, the dance.
You remind me of. Or is that you remind me of the Babe?
The Babe with the power. The power of voodoo.
The power of voodoo.
You do. No, that song is that whole scene. We were talking about just unique character design too. Just having every single like puppet be super interesting, all be coordinated or choreographed differently, and then the most important puppet of them all is David Bowie's bulge. Bulge.
David. I think his dick gets up and dances at one point. Like it pops up like Big Mouth and just fucking does a number.
I mean, if it just turned into fucking Hoggle, I would not be surprised. I'm like, yeah, that tracks. But my favorite part of that whole scene, obviously, it's like the baby's reactions to the lanes, like, and baby says, but like when he's throwing the baby up in the air, it's just like the little CGI baby. But,
oh yeah, no, he throws the baby like fucking 20 feet in the air.
And then and my favorite is like with a shot where it's like really far pan back and you're just looking into the room. It's just like the most obvious doll ever. It's like American Psycho level or American Sniper level of just holding a fake baby. And oh god, that scene's my favorite in the movie. Definitely the favorite song too.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty great scene. But yeah, so she's down here in the hole, and then she basically, she's like, "Oh, Hoggle, I'll give you this bracelet if you lead me out of here." And we find out that Hoggle is kind of like supposed to lead her back to the beginning of the maze. He's one of the Goblin King's henchmen. And then the next thing that happens, I believe, is she runs into Wait, oh no, she finds Ludo at this point.
Yeah.
Not Chewbacca. She finds
definitely not Chewbacca and definitely not Merlin.
Definitely not Chewbacca. When we first meet him, he can like barely talk. I'm like, oh no, it's an iron giant. This thing's gonna die.
No.
And she frees Ludo because he's like strung up, being poked at by some goblins. And yeah, I remember him specifically. I was thinking like, damn, if I was a kid, I would be terrified of him because he's just too damn big.
He's just his own, like, those like boyfriend pillows and weighted blankets. He's like every single one at Walmart kind of came together. He's just a big cuddle bear, but he's also like tall.
Yeah, he's really cute. But if he wanted, he could fucking Bane style snap Jennifer Connelly over his fucking knee.
Definitely not rip off Chewbacca, I swear.
100%, totally not a Chewbacca. But yeah, then they go to probably was one of my favorite practical effects in the movie. Oh wait, no, you know what? It's afterwards, I think. We'll get to it, but yeah, her and Ludo go into this forest, and they run into the fire gang in the forest, which is simultaneously my least favorite scene, but also kind of like one of the most unsettling to me.
It's one of the most memorable to me. Obviously, the green screen has been beaten to death, but just like the whole, I think it's just because the song is probably my least favorite, and it's like something that like I also like struggle to really enjoy or listen to in the first place, but also just the way that the characters move around Jennifer Connelly and the head and the head movement and the head decapitation. It's very jarring. It's just weird because like you talk about griminess or just like grossness or like the scary factor in some of these scenes throughout the movie. This scene definitely makes the most of that for me, but it's also not my favorite scene.
Yeah. The thing that makes the scene most unsettling for me is the fact that like these creatures, so like they tear off their limbs and their limbs can like fly off and fly around and like they can detach like bionicles. And they try to rip Jennifer Connelly's head off.
Oh yeah.
And she rips all their head off and runs away, and they're like, "Oh, we got to tear off your head now." Even at one point, I think one of them screams, "Somebody get the saw!"
I don't remember. Maybe that would track actually.
Yeah, no, they say that, and I'm just like, God damn, this is fucking terrifying. These things are trying to dismember her. But eventually, she gets saved by Ludo and pulled out of there. But it's interesting because it's probably the one scene where like these creatures never come up again. And it's also like, if I was going to cut anything from this movie, it would be that scene.
It doesn't really add anything. It's just an obstacle, but it doesn't really, because all the obstacles, like they teach her like something that just teaches her that decapitation is okay.
Yeah. That you can cut off your enemy's head if they're being scared of you. But yeah, no, weird scene. And then I forget if they come across the gates before they come across the Bog of Eternal Stench. No, I think it's afterwards.
Yeah, and so then they meet they meet Sir Didymus, right? That's like right around then.
Sir Didymus.
Sir Didymus.
He's a little crusty fox with an eye patch and like a little stick. And for me, he was very much the Inigo Montoya of the group. As far as like he was the fighter, he's the one that always wanted to throw hands the most.
Yeah.
And he was probably my favorite of all the public. He was Courtney's favorite too. I just like a feisty little fucker that wants to fight. And he has a little dog steed that looks like her dog in the real world. But yeah, and then somewhere around this point we come upon what probably is like one of my favorite of the makeup practical effects in the movie, which is the doors that like one of them can't hear and the other one has the ring in their mouths.
Oh right, yeah. And she pulls the ring from. Oh, that scene's great.
Yeah, it's a great scene, not just for the humor, but like just looking at like it really sold to me their face paint and like the little prosthetics they had on their lips and stuff really made these doors look like they were metal ass doors and ringers.
Oh yeah,
like it didn't look like rubbery or fake me. Like they looked like real metal that just kind of came alive, and like their performances of the actors when they first went up to them, where they were just so perfectly still. It just like it's probably like. It's kind of a small scene effects wise and like not a lot, but it's the most impressive to me personally.
Yeah, and we talked about like the grand, like the massive sets, but it's little things like that help to pull you into the movie just a little bit.
Yeah, every little effect shot counts, like not even small scenes like this. Yeah, so they're walking through the woods. They get through this gate. The group gets hungry, so Hoggle gives Sarah a magic fushigi peach that David Bowie gave him, and we get this like little dream sequence of Jennifer Connelly at this ball and we get a really creepy song where David Bowie is like asking basically this 16-year-old girl to be his wife, and to be her slave and shit.
Yeah, it's not very subtle with the whole like not I love you. It's like, oh, you're mine forever. Watch
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, really, really creepy stuff. And it's funny because, like, and I, a lot of the Letterboxd reviews I read afterwards were like, man, if it was me there, I'd be like, yes, David Bowie, give me the goblin dick.
Give me that goblin dick. Can we talk about the costume design of that scene specifically too?
Oh no, there are some fire ass fits in that scene, like David Bowie's whole sparkly, like suit, and like I love her hair. Mm-hmm. Like how not only how voluminous they got it, but like all the kind of metal wirings going through it.
And again, it's like all the extras in that scene, like the masquerade style of the part of the pantomime, and all of a sudden, just you look at every single character. It's so much detail in each of the costumes. It must have been painstaking getting everything down to a science there.
No, absolutely. This is definitely the kind of movie that would be so hard to make today. Mm-hmm. Is for just this like really weird kind of children's film. Especially this. If you wanted to make something similar to this, it would be like a Neon or like A24 movie, and it would have to be like a weird thing for adults, like a PG-13, like kind of weird art piece kind of deal. Like it would just be very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, she snaps out of the dream, and they fall into a junkyard. And she has this really creepy sequence where she's kind of stuck with this troll woman, who is basically trying to bury her in all of her old things. And like the way I interpreted that scene is kind of just like oh, you can't be stuck in like the things that you loved in the past. You got to move forward, kind of deal.
Yeah, and I mean the whole movie is just kind of that, like obviously the coming of age narrative, but told in a very different way. So thematically, it works as well.
Yeah, both of these movies very much. I didn't expect either of them to actually do this either. Or like, pretty much just like fairy tales that are representing like real lessons for these characters. Or at the very least, like you could interpret either of these movies as like, did all the magic shit really happen, or do these girls just have overactive imaginations? You know, which with Pan's Labyrinth, I was watching after I finished the movie. We'll get into it, but so Pan's Labyrinth, I bought the Criterion Blu-ray.
Yep, that's what I watched it on too.
Yep, and that's what I watched. And after the movie was done, I was watching a bunch of the special features, and Guillermo in there says to him, all the magic shit is real. Yeah. But he wants audiences to kind of make up their own mind about it.
Yeah, I've got a quote I want to lead the Pan's Labyrinth discussion with, but we'll finish this one up.
Yeah, we'll finish up. Oh, my headphones. There we go. They started acting weird. Anyway, but yeah, no. So she breaks out of it. Yeah, they fight a mech robot. Mm-hmm. But Hoggle comes to the rescue. And they all enter Goblin City together. There's a pretty cool kind of action like chase sequence where like David Bowie's goblins are chasing them around the city, and there's a lot of fucking explosions.
Yeah, I want to talk about that just non-stop, because it's pretty much just Jennifer Connelly and them against like 50 like to 100 just puppets running around, and they go hard with the VFX there. Like it's all practical too, and you can see just the puppets like flailing around and
and all the explosions. Like there was a lot of like planning, like the production in this scene goes super hard. And then Ludo, this is the second time he does this. He can talk to rocks because rocks are his friends. He's an earthbender. And he summons the rocks to come fight for them. And it's pretty fucking cool. But then, so they get to David Bowie's throne room, and Jennifer Connelly's like, I have to do this part on my own.
But she really didn't have to.
She really didn't have to, but it's like, oh, we can't have all these puppets operating in the weird stairs room.
It's like when they were filming The Room and they just hit their budget and they're like, all right, whatever.
We can't do it. So her and David Bowie, she's in this. This says it's based on M.C. Eichner's Relativity. Is that like the paint? Yeah, this painting.
Yeah.
The stair painting where like there's stairs going all different directions, and it's like it's an Inception room, you know, like the whole non-Euclidean geometry type deal.
I was gonna say, way to end the fantasy world on such a just creative note. And
Yeah.
obviously, like I didn't hear about the painting until I saw the movie, but like just seeing this, the creative inspiration it takes from just multiple forms of media and art, like not just like fairy tales or other fairy tales, but also just contemporary, like previous art, obviously designs of costumes which echo like I don't know, like early like just like plays. I don't know. This sentences sometimes are hard for me, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I was listening to a kind of a review, like a deep dive review of this movie, where they were talking about how the production of it was pretty rough because like Jim Henson wanted to make it way more of like specifically a character piece, and like wanted the movie to focus way more on developing the characters deeper, and then George Lucas kind of wanted to delve deeper into the weird shit. And I feel like you can kind of feel it being tugged either way, you know.
Which is actually a really good point that you bring that out because there's we talked about the characters and the performances, but you're right. It could, like her character could have just been a little stronger. Like obviously
Yeah.
there was that like the growth that she ends up facing like at the end of the movie, but she doesn't really. It's a pretty standard like, oh yeah, I don't love my brother. Wait, I should probably love my brother, and you grow as a person kind of narrative. But there's a lot of room for it to breathe in there. Maybe that's a factor of the runtime too. Like it's only
Yeah.
a 90-minute movie, but and then even like in some scenes, like the fantastical element, it is there, but they could have gone so much weirder. I definitely could have felt like that too.
Yeah, it could have kind of gone in either way for me a bit more, and like part of it is like I definitely need to see this movie not sober, and I think that will honestly I think that will unlock some things that I didn't pick up on, but also I just need to revisit it and kind of like because it does interest me, and it's definitely a movie I want to revisit in the future, and we'll pull more from, but yeah, so she gets her brother back, and David Bowie kind of like she has a final confrontation with David Bowie, and she remembers the final line from the book where she goes, "You have no power over me," and she wakes up. I forget if she wakes up in her bed or she's just like teleported into her like house.
I think she just kind of teleports. I'm blanking on it myself too.
Yeah, she turns to the house. This says that Jareth returns Sarah and Toby home, turns into a barn owl, and flies away. So presumably, yeah, he brought her back. And then she gives Toby her teddy bear, returns to her room, and then she has a little moment in the mirror where she sees in a very Star Wars Force Ghost moment, sees her mystical friend she made in the Labyrinth, and they're always like, "Whenever you need us, we can be there."
And then they have
And
a
then
little
she's like-
dance party.
and they have a little dance party in her room. And the way that Courtney interpreted that ending, which is like how I liked how I definitely like to see it, is like it's very much a representation of kids who get lost in books and like lost in fantasy and like feel more comfortable kind of like living in these fake worlds than in like the real world, and like knowing that you have to go beyond them, but they're always going to be there if you need them.
Right.
Is like what the vibe was, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I like that. There is a little bit of a meta narrative to it. Just obviously opening up with her discontentment, with her being unhappy at home, and just showing all these things that are out of her control that she needs to hide away from, and then she goes through this adventure. But the adventure also shows those horrors, so it's not like she's completely running away from the horrors, but she's able to use it to kind of get herself out of it for a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, no, it's a solid movie. It's a good lesson. Whether or not you believe that what happened is real feels like it's up to your interpretation. But yeah, definitely one I want to visit more. Now let's go on to Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh man, what a jump!
What a jump! But these two movies have surprisingly similar themes.
Very surprising, because I hadn't seen this movie in a while since and I'm happy that you recommended it, but yeah, it didn't hit me until like the first 10 or 15 minutes in. I'm just like, wow, this movie's got some daddy issues.
Yeah,
And daddy
watching back to
is
back.
fascism.
Yes, daddy fascism, daddy Nazi. Well, two things. One, maybe you can clear this up for me, just as far as like I'm not a history buff by any means. I wish I knew more about history in general. But these people are Nazis, right?
They're
Like,
I don't remember like because the Spanish Civil War happened like it wasn't tangentially to World War II. It was like right before leading into the start of it. So
yeah.
like it was basically there were elements that were technically allied with the Axis powers as I understand it, but they didn't take part in any of the actual conflict.
Okay. Nazi adjacent, not great guys, killing people, believed in eugenics, all that jazz.
You know, I'm starting to think that these fascists aren't very cool dudes.
Yeah, no, fascists and Nazis, not great.
Not good.
Before we delve deeper into this movie, I want to tell you a little story. I'm gonna tell a story on Courtney's behalf.
Okay.
Because we've talked about both of these movies before. So when they were in high school, they wanted to watch Labyrinth because they had like a David Bowie phase, and they ended up watching Pan's Labyrinth, thinking that it was Labyrinth.
Hell
right?
yeah.
And the whole apparently the whole movie, they watched the whole movie, and the whole time they were just waiting for David Bowie. And they weren't enjoying it because they were like, "Oh, this is so much darker." And they were like, "Well, but David, I got to keep watching because David Bowie is gonna pop up at any moment."
Hey, it's the Fawn actually. The Fawn actually. Oh, that's a point. We'll get into the character of the Fawn, but maybe the Fawn is your surrogate Bowie.
My boy Doug Jones.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and like they even watched through the whole credits, like maybe David Bowie will show up in an after credit scene. And it wasn't
David Bowie will return. He wasn't even here.
Yeah. And then afterwards they looked it up and realized they watched the wrong Labyrinth. And they didn't watch the 80s Labyrinth until yesterday with me. It was their first time seeing that one as well.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, funny enough. But before we break into the movie, Guillermo del Toro, what's your history with him? What are some of your other favorite films by him? What do you think of him as a filmmaker?
So Guillermo del Toro, I mean, being one of the three amigos, it's really odd, man. For those who don't know, it's
Alfonso Cuarón
and Alejandro Inarritu. All three just phenomenal directors. But Guillermo del Toro, even though he's the most fantastical, in my opinion, he's the most human of the three. All of his movies have just this incredibly deep heart, and it's either like a cynical heart, it's a fantastical heart, but every single one of his movies that I've like watched of his, I'm able to pull this level of empathy that I wouldn't have like done otherwise. And Guillermo just has this amazing embrace for everything that he puts on his screen, especially when it comes to fantastical. But for my relationship with Guillermo, there's one quote that kind of summarizes it the best. It was when he won the Golden Globe for I actually wrote a paper on this quote. He won the Golden Globe for The Shape of Water, 2018, I believe.
17, I think.
That sounds about right. One of those. I think the award was 2018, but the movie came out in 17.
We watched it. We watched those Oscars our sophomore year in my sophomore year dorm.
That was a good one.
Specifically.
God, we had some really good Oscars.
Yeah, we watched it. Yeah. I remember I woke you up when Moonlight won. Jack, Moonlight won.
they what was the quote? Not Richard. Who's the guy that I have to apologize guy?
Yeah, I have to apologize. There's been a mistake. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, Shape of Water was 2017. Oh,
yeah.
So it would have been 2018.
Yeah, but so he has a quote where he talks. His quote is during his speech is just all about his relationship with monsters. And how his movies have saved his life, specifically the ones that are centered around this like dark core. And one of the movies that he actually mentions is Devil's Backbone, and I will touch on that a little bit later. But I kind of
I have not seen it.
Yeah, that kind of encapsulates everything that I love about Guillermo del Toro. All of his movies, even the Hellboy movies, they have this tender core that's surrounded by this like demonic, hellish exterior, and he's one of maybe not my favorite director of all time, but he's definitely like one of the most human, and he's just one of the most interesting in the way that he can connect like this very empathetic human narrative with something so fantastical. And in one of those interviews that you mentioned in the he did one, I forget the name of the woman that interviewed him, but he opens up like his old 1840s 1850s fairy tale book, and just how that relationship with fairy tales and his time kind of just brought up his own humanity. And I just think he's a very beautiful, thoughtful person. On top of that, more importantly, honestly.
For sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, no, like he seems like a great guy. Like every interview I see with him, like I love the way he explains things. And I want to talk about one of my favorite like moments, or like when I was watching the behind the scenes today, he was just making all these comparisons and all these like different sources that he got inspiration from Pan's Labyrinth. And it's like, wow, I never would have thought that that's where he would have gotten inspiration from. And one of the quotes in like one of the interviews that I always think of is there's a behind the scenes feature on Shape of Water on the Blu-ray, but I think you can find it online, where Doug Jones is talking about what Guillermo del Toro told him as like the inspiration for playing the amphibian man in that movie.
What was it?
And he's imitating Guillermo del Toro. He's like, Silver Surfer. You played Silver Surfer. This character, he is part Silver Surfer, part Matador. And I always think of that. I was like, hell yeah, bro, that's the vibe.
Not gonna lie, I haven't seen Shape of Water since it came out, but I don't think I could ever see the Matador. Just besides, he's like kind of sexy.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like how he stands, like broad-chested, like kind of deal is like what I remember he was talking about in that. But
he's like old Greg on testosterone supplements.
Yeah, Shape of Water is probably my top 3 of Guillermo. But as far as my history with him, the first movie where I really took notice of him as a director, where like is something that I kind of like went on my way to like learn like what else has this guy directed, was Pacific Rim. I mean, at that point, I had seen the Hellboy movies and I love Hellboy 2, but I didn't know that it was Del Toro specifically at that time. Like I hadn't looked into the background of that, but Pacific Rim was like, wow, this is like. Because I feel like Pacific Rim was the first giant monster movie that, like, I feel like if you didn't have what he did in Pacific Rim, you wouldn't get what you get in some of the better moments of, like, the current Godzilla Kong monsterverse, where, like, he's constantly reminding you in that first Pacific Rim, even though, and this is something that attracts me about Del Toro, is, like, I love, yes, he's known for all these fantasy elements and exploring all of these, like, crazy fantasy and sci-fi things. He always makes everything we're watching feel super grounded.
Yeah, it feels real within the universe of the movie.
Exactly. And with Pacific Rim, no matter what, there's like he's always constantly reminding you, even though these creatures and the robots are all CG, he's constantly reminding you of scale. Like,
yep, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
We're shooting from the ground, looking up at the robots, or like, oh, we're seeing like people in the background, like people in the foreground running, and the robots are in the background, or like we're punching through a building and we see like office chairs and desks and shit being thrown out of the way, and that kind of sensibility he brought to that movie. When after seeing that movie, I went back and revisited some of the movies that like I didn't know that were him, like Blade 2 and the Hellboy movies. Sorry, excuse me. It's kind of the same way where like we've talked about all the time the troll market scene, the troll market in Hellboy 2, just as far as like the way that it's just built into the environment of the city and just like how like lived in the world feels, and like he has such a unique way of like taking these traditional. And in Pan's Labyrinth, it's like the biggest because we're dealing with like traditional fantasy characters like the Fallen and shit, and making it feel like, oh no, these are like real creatures that can exist.
If anything, it's definitely his most. It might be somebody consider it his most difficult to kind of make work. You have to think about it because it is like a direct like fantasy within a reality kind of narrative. Like, think about your. I'm taking a good example, Hellboy. Like that kind of rides along that line too, but it's definitely definitely embraces like. Just the cynical, like kind of what we talk about with like Labyrinth, just the dirty, like oh god, like it's just. Go ahead, sorry.
No, sorry, you continue, Jake.
No, that's really it basically it rides that line a little bit more. Plus, there was also an original, like direct original source of it. Guillermo del Toro for this movie basically had to just take like, okay, here's a lot of fairy tales. I need to make all this into my own narrative based off of the original Fano, but it's not like a comic book base. And doing that, making that work in the narrative of just fascism taking over Spain, it must have been really difficult to at least conceptualize.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little director's intro on the Criterion Blu-ray, and he talked about how like, yeah, this movie like almost killed me. I lost 25 pounds while making this movie. Like, I lost so much sleep over it. But I really like how it came out, so I hope you enjoy. Like, he's a filmmaker that, like, you really feel him giving his all in his movies. And I wanted to say, I don't just mean when I say that his movies have less realism, I don't necessarily mean like dark and gritty, because I don't think his movies are just straight up dark and gritty. I think there's a lot of levity to them. There's a lot of like, when I say realistic, I mean they feel relatable and like I can be there. And like, even down to like, I think about the scene. I keep coming back to Hellboy 2. I just love Hellboy. I'm very nostalgic for Hellboy 2. The scene where Hellboy and Abe are just like getting drunk and like singing along to like love songs or whatever, you know, like that's a very human moment that like I've had with my boy who's having heart troubles, you know. And it's just he's just like a very human filmmaker. And I wanted to say, I don't know if I've said this to you yet, or this is something I've talked about with Joseph a lot. So firstly, Guillermo del Toro was originally supposed to direct the Hobbit movies,
Right. Yep.
like he was supposed to do, I think at that point it was going to be a two-parter.
Yeah.
And I found that out way after all of them had come out. And I was like, God damn, we were fucking robbed.
We were totally just not like the only other person I could see directing like a movie on that scale with the level of creativity that Del Toro would have brought to it would have ironically been Peter Jackson. And then, well, you saw how that went. But I don't really entirely blame Peter Jackson for it. But that's a different conversation entirely.
Yeah. Because like I rewatched not all the Lord of the Rings movies recently, but like I I started rewatching and kind of fell asleep watching Fellowship of the Ring, and I forgot like how kind of scary some of the designs and like moments in that movie are. You know, like the fucking Nazgul are terrifying.
Oh, dude, what's it called? What's the name? The Balrog is still
The Balrog.
Still the design of the Balrog, just basically just being this gigantic shadow demon, and then all the goblins too.
Yeah, no, really great, and I feel like Del Toro's like visual touch really would have like I think it would be built for that world. But outside of that, this is something I don't hear anybody talking about. In our Dune episode, I talked a lot about how I think Denis Villeneuve is the wrong director for Dune. Like I think that like you would want I think Benicio del Toro not Benicio del Toro. Guillermo del Toro I think would make an incredible adaptation of Dune.
I feel like for some reason, literally no justification, Benicio del Toro would have made a good adaptation of Dune. It'd just be significantly more incoherent.
Sicario in space. Space Cario. Spice Cario. But no, just as far as like, because a lot of my favorite parts of the Dune books, which like I've only read the first two for now, I started reading the third, is a lot of the weird shit. Like there's like a lot of like really weird sci-fi concepts and like a lot of like characters, not necessarily aliens, but like I don't know if you've seen the 80s Dune, right? The David Lynch's Dune.
A while ago, like back in high school, but yes, I've seen just the directions that it goes.
Yeah, so like you remember the space navigator and how he fucking threw up in warp space and shit. It's like a big worm creature. I think Del Toro would have like just taken all of those visual elements and like taken it to a place that felt a lot more lived in, because something that I have a problem with Denis Villeneuve's Dune movies is that they feel too clean. Like there's a lot of like his Dune movies to me feel very empty. Like it's not really a universe that feels super it feels like a little bit too polished to me. Which for his other movies, I think it works really well with Blade Runner. Just as far as going for this retro futuristic thing, I think it works great for Arrival.
Blade Runner, obviously, we talked about Arrival, but Blade Runner 2 is fantastic.
Yeah, but like when people have said like Dune should be Game of Thrones in space, I believe that wholeheartedly. As far as like it's just got to be like fucked up, messy, dirty, fucked up human shit. Yeah. And I think that Del Toro would bring that to the forefront. And
have you seen Jodorowsky's Dune, the documentary about Alejandro Jodorowsky's interpretation?
I have not seen the documentary yet, but I know a lot about what like happened there and like a lot about the production of it.
Oh yeah, dude, that movie would have been crack, but it also would have destroyed Jodorowsky. Just like the lengths that he goes and pretty much the madness that he endured just trying to get that made as a concept. It's just imagine Del Toro, what Del Toro when he was talking about making Pan's Labyrinth like times 5.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I definitely want to watch that documentary. I'm gonna check it out. Maybe we can do an episode on it.
Yeah.
But let's get back to Pan's. Let's talk about Pan's Labyrinth, the movie itself. I just wanted to rant about how I really wanted Guillermo del Toro to make a Dune movie. I just want more stuff from him. But yeah, so the movie opens up, and we're kind of introduced. We're given like a little bit of a fairy tale rundown about Princess Moana, whose father is the king of the underworld, visits the human world where the sunlight blinds her and erases her memory. So basically, actually, it starts with a shot of Ophelia, our character, dead on the ground, which bookends the movie. And I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect her to die, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler in all this.
Well, it doesn't really. It's the first shot of the movie, so I don't really consider it a spoiler.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't expect that, but yeah. So it opens up with her. We get this little backstory, and then we get we kind of cut to it's 1954. It's Spain. It's around the end of the Spanish Civil War, right after we were just talking about it. The point is, Ophelia and her pregnant mother, who is also sick, who I knew was going to die right away because she had the movie coughs.
Yeah, as soon as you get the light little, you got the black lung, Pa. You got the black lung.
Not even just a little. They had to fucking pull the car over for her to cough.
Oh, the first scene of the movie is like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
This is happening.
Yeah, but I'm like, yeah, she's not making it. She's coughing too much. So her mom is sick, and they're on their way to move into this mansion with this man, Captain Vidal. I just called him the Nazi man throughout the Nazi death.
He is the biggest. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies, but the few times I've seen this movie, every time I watch him, I'm like, this dude is like the biggest monster I've ever seen in the movie.
He's such a dick. Sergei Lopez is the actor's name, and I don't think I've seen him in anything else, but he is just a fucking monster in this movie. To the point where like I was feeling a lot of Michael Shannon in Shape of Water in this character. Just as far as like, I feel like the man is the true monster could be like the main theme of a lot of Del Toro's movies.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like he really sells it in this. But so they're driving to this place. They pull over for mom to cough, have movie cough, and Ophelia, this little girl, sees a stick bug, like a big stick bug dragonfly fucker thing, which I would not have run up on. I would be scared that it was going to sting me or something.
Those things are not small. They're
no.
I was gonna say, like, when I first saw them, like, wait a minute, what? Stop it! No! Don't touch it! Don't touch it! Don't touch it! No!
Yeah, it was like a foot across. She runs across this thing. She thinks that it's a fairy, and it flies away. And she gets called back to the car, and this bug chases their car down the road. And we get introduced to Captain Vital and to Nazi Dad. And immediately, something I noticed that I thought this was going to come back up later, and I wanted to ask you if you caught this as well. So she goes to shake his hand using her left hand, right? And the captain asshole grabs her hand and is like, it's the other hand you use. So in my head, and it never comes up later, that specific interaction. I thought it would. In my hand, like, oh, she's left-handed, and she was trying to introduce herself with her left hand, but this man's like believes in Aryan perfection and all this like bullshit, so she's probably like, no, you can't it's the devil's hand, you can't be left-handed, is how already telling me like, okay, he's this kind of asshole. Did you catch that at all?
I didn't catch that level of detail with just left-handed. Well, I guess now you can assume that was definitely the case, but I just assumed it was, hey, I'm an asshole, like, here's human supremacy. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what was implied, but that's what I got. But I will look it up and find out later. I intend on watching many many a video essay. But yeah, so Captain Asshole. Mom is getting carted away in a wheelchair, and Ophelia kind of wanders off into the woods, and she finds Chekhov's Labyrinth in the woods, Pan's Labyrinth.
Ooh, actually, now that you're on that section, it says in 1944, France. So it's right towards the end of World War II. It's not before. I guess in terms of the timeline, like the Spanish Civil War probably ended right around that time. Slight tangent, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I don't know history. I wish, just a brief history rant. I really wish that I think I just had bad history teachers all through my schooling, because history was just never interesting to me, like how it was presented to me in school. But then, like, as I got older and I started like meeting people who just know more about real history shit, I'm like, damn, that's interesting as fuck.
Yeah.
And it just was never shown to me in an interesting way. Yeah, so she goes to the labyrinth. She finds a stone, but she's stopped by the housekeeper, Mercedes, who looks kind of like her mom. Who immediately she has some rapport with this woman. You see that they have like a little bit of a connection. By the end of the movie, I think there's a little bit of a Newt Ripley vibe going on.
Yeah.
With them. Yeah, so at this point in the movie, we're kind of introduced to a lot of the big key players. And what do you think of the characters and the actors at this point in the movie, Jack?
At this point in the movie, they're like all the performances are great. Like all around, I love the Doctor character. Like just having some like the Doctor character and Mercedes. Mercedes is probably my favorite performance in the movie.
Yeah, she's great.
Because she like to think about from her perspective, she's a character that's like lived in this fascist world, but unlike Ophelia's mom, like she has taken the brunt of every single beating that she could have, like both literally and metaphorically. And of course, her connection to I think it's her brother, her husband. I think it's her brother.
Her brother.
Yeah,
Pedro.
Like, and just like having that guilt weigh on her pretty much every single scene in this movie. It's really gut wrenching, especially when it comes towards the end when it's not really. I mean, we already talked about when Ophelia dies. Like, she's the one that I end up feeling for the most because of all the trauma that she had to endure. Not just, like, seeing Ophelia die, obviously, but seeing the Doctor get killed, seeing...
Almost getting raped.
Like, almost getting brutally tortured, and then all of her friends that are in the Resistance to get killed. Like, she's the one that arguably goes through the most, but she still has to carry that care that she needs for not just Ophelia, but soon-to-be Ophelia's brother. But yeah, on top of that, I love the Doctor character.
The Doctor's cool.
The Doctor's really cool. I really like, what's the name of the guy with the stutter?
I forget his name. Fernando? No, not him. Pedro... Narrator, Carmen. I forget the dude's name, but I was gonna say the Doctor also gives me vibes of the Doctor from Shape of Water.
Yeah.
I'm not finding this fucking character's name. Pedro Mercedes Brothers and one of the rebels. Yeah, I don't remember the stuttering guy's name, but he was really good.
Yeah, his torture scene is devastating.
In his like post-torture, like when he begs to be killed. Yeah, no, like. This movie's dark.
No, this movie is the darkest in a lot of ways. Yeah. Even though like Devil's Backbone definitely is a lot less fantastical, but still has the fantasy elements. I haven't seen Kronos in a while, which I believe was his debut feature. This movie is his biggest like, fuck you, everything's shit right now. Fascism is ruling the world kind of movie. It is really stark. It's really difficult to watch sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. No, it hits you right in the heart. But it's still at least in this part of the movie we're getting introduced to like the fantasy elements and like the reality and stuff. So basically, finds the labyrinth that night. So what I thought was really cool. So at night she's in bed, and the big bug thing from earlier. Oh God, what the fuck was it? Sorry, my Gatorade bottle just like popped out of nowhere. But the bug comes and visits her, and she's like, "Hi, did you follow me?" And then she shows the bug a picture of a fairy in her book, and she's like, "This is a fairy. Are you a fairy?" And it like transforms in a very Guillermo del Toro way into the shape of a fairy.
I am a fairy. Watch this.
check this out. And it's like I thought that was a very cool scene, and I remember at this point in the movie. So at this point in the movie, I was 100% in the mode of like, okay, all of this magic shit is real.
Yeah.
Like every like the monster. I thought that, and I was a little bit disappointed by the fact that the monsters that the fawn didn't like rip Nazi dad's asshole apart or whatever.
Yeah.
But the way I interpret it is I feel like it's all in her head. But
Yeah.
but at this point I think it's also just like a cool representation of like her, like the way that kids will kind of like will change the elements around them and like imagine certain things in order to deal with the trauma that's happening. Yeah, that's happening around them.
Thematically connecting itself to what we talked about with Labyrinth, right?
Yeah. Like all the same themes. Like these movies have a lot of similar things as far as like when it comes to children, whereas this character is a lot younger than the character of Sarah in Labyrinth. It's still the same thing of like kids who are in traumatic and stressful situations will bury themselves in these fantasy worlds in like this other universe in order to deal with what's going on in the real world.
Yeah.
And I thought that like this right here was a nice little visual representation of that exact thing.
Yeah.
So the fairy leads her back down into the maze. She finds a little like stone eyeball thing. Well, she found a stone eyeball thing earlier. And she brings the stone eyeball thing down into this hole in the middle of the labyrinth. And she puts it in, and it summons Doug Jones. It summons, oh my god, Nightmares from Hell a little bit, but also, like, I love this character's design and this first introductory scene. Like, I'm gonna gush about it, but like, what did you think about this character's introduction, the fawn, and like this whole scene?
Absolutely incredible. This might be like this scene specifically when you first meet the scene might be my favorite ever, like Del Toro scene, quite frankly. Besides maybe a few of the scenes in Shape of Water, but the thing that always struck me was there was a period of time. I think when I first saw it, I thought it was a puppet. I thought that it was like a stop motion puppet, not a stop motion puppet, but just like a puppet. I don't know. And then of course like hearing just about the costume design, hearing to the, I think they talk about in one of the special features about just how they had to animate the mouth. But Doug Jones, just his physique during the scene, just his articulation,
how he's moving, his hands.
It is absolutely incredible. And of course the fawn has this like temperament about him where he's embracing the fantasy and just being, but also being very cold with Ophelia. Like, hey, like you're this princess. We want to make you immortal again. We want you to save the fantasy. And that's actually really that's an interesting point that comes up where he talks about like, oh, it happens a little bit more later on in the movie, like when she dies or when she fails, like fantasy dies with her. And that like literally happens like at the end of the movie when she unfortunately passes away, like all the fantasy around her dies with her, which would lend it to the whole it's all in her head kind of ordeal. But either way, just the way that he like goes in depth with the history of who she is, how she's this princess and she has the 3 tasks. This might be my favorite scene in the whole. This is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, even though it's not the most fantastical.
Yeah. The design of this character is so it rides the line so well between being off-putting, badass, and like really familiar and inviting all at the same time. And a big part of that is like there's a line that the fawn has that I thought was like the coolest fucking line that like really put in that scratched a particular itch I have about these kind of mythical characters. She asks what his name is, and his response is like, "Oh, I've been known by many names, many names. Some names, some of my oldest names, I'm known by some names that are so old only the wind in the trees can pronounce them."
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, "Damn, that goes hard." I'm gonna steal that for like my next D&D campaign. And just so and that line immediately set into place like why he looks like he does. Like he's like part tree, part goat, part human. It's because like this thing is like representing nature, and it's representing like these things are like older than the earth and have been around that long, and like that's why he looks like that, and it's something that like really, and that's just something that I like really dig as far as like I'm a big fan of characters that are like millions and millions of years old.
Yeah.
Which that reminds me, there's have you heard of the movie? I have not watched the movie yet, but I've seen a lot of clips from it on TikTok, and I want to sit down and watch the movie. Have you heard of the movie The Man from Earth?
Not the Man from Earth. I've heard of the Man Who Fell to Earth, which also has Bowie, but not the Man from Earth.
Also has Bowie, but different movie. So the premise of The Man from Earth is like, so there's this college professor who is leaving the college and moving, and the night before he leaves, he invites some of his colleagues, fellow professors, over to his house to have like a goodbye dinner with them. And at this goodbye dinner, he reveals to them and he tells them, like, hey, so I'm like immortal, and I'm like over 30,000 years old. Like I was like around in caveman times. Yeah, I brought you here to tell you because I want to get it off my chest, and let's talk. And the whole movie is like basically him trying to prove to all of these scholars that like he's actually like this immortal being.
Ooh, did this movie come out in like? Is it like somewhat recent?
No, I think it came out in like the early 2000s or the 90s. It's a made-for-TV movie. I got a bunch of TikTok clips of it. It has Tony Todd in it as one of the professors, and like it just seemed really interesting. And like
it's just them in a room or in the house the whole movie, right?
Yeah. There's just them in the house talking the whole movie.
I definitely have heard of this. I think it's on my watch list. Hold on.
Yeah, no, it's pretty sure it's on mine too. But like, what I'm saying is, I'm a big fan of like characters that are just old as fuck. Is all I'm trying to like incomprehensibly old.
Yeah,
like beyond human comprehension old is just something that I'm a big fan of, and that's something that immediately I just find really cool about this character. But the scene itself, just the depth of his voice and how he's like weaving in and out of the shadows. You don't know if like she's imagining him or if he's just being like that. Yeah, so like, he gives her the book, tells her that he has 3 tasks. She has 3 tasks, and if she wins the tasks, then she'll become immortal again and return to her kingdom or whatever, in the underworld. And then the first task is retrieving the key from the belly of a giant toad. And let's see. And then 1 second. Yeah, then the fawn gives her the magic. Did that happen at the same time? I thought what the fuck was the second task?
The second task is the eyeless, the pale man.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, she gets the toad, and then the Wikipedia just has it in a weird order. Yeah, so she goes to the belly to the belly of the tree to get the key, which this is skipping a lot because she gets the key when she's given like the really fancy dress by Nazi dad. And you can tell that she's not really about like this high life, like fancy upper class bullshit.
Yeah.
This Aryan nonsense. So she takes the dress off, goes into this old tree to go confront this toad, and the dress gets like torn off in the wind, and you know that it's gonna get fucked up.
Yeah.
But this toad sequence honestly contains, for me, what is like the weakest part of the film, or like pretty much 90% of the effects shot or like the creature stuff in this movie is practical.
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful.
And this is the only true CGI shot, right?
Yeah, like one of the only ones where this toad, like when it's moving a lot and it's like grabbing food, like grabbing the bugs in this tree, it turns into this big CGI toad, and it does not look good.
Yeah.
It pulls me out. Even the puppet itself, like there are scenes where it's just a puppet when it's not moving that much. It's not the greatest design. Like it is kind of just a big frog.
Ribbit. Ribbit. No, I just completely off topic about frogs. I bought my girlfriend a stuffed animal frog. What the name Clyde came to me, Clyde for the frog. So now we named it Clyde. What is there a Clyde frog? Oh no, it's South Park. That's it. Okay, I was trying to remember what Clyde frog. Yeah, it's Cartman's frog is named Clyde Frog. I shit you not. I think that's gotta be it.
Oh yeah, it's his like puppet, like stuffed animal frog.
Yeah.
Tide frog.
Sorry, that was completely off topic. Please continue.
No, it's fine. You're just thinking about frog. This is just a sequence like it when she feeds it the like poison bugs or whatever, it throws up its guts, and it's just like this big yellow loogie looking thing, and
then just becomes like a flat puddle.
Yeah, it took me out of the movie. Like it's the only effect shot that really does that for me in this. But once again, it is also one of the only CG shots, so you can just see where the strengths lie. And the fact that it's like a lower budget, like this says 19 million. I don't know if that's adjusted for inflation.
And for 19 million, even when this came out in 2006, it looks amazing.
Oh yeah, no, it looks incredible. Like everything. Yeah, I also just love. I don't know. Is this the same cinematographer? I'm sure the cinematographer has worked on other movies because the look of it definitely reminded me of some other stuff.
Guillermo Navarro.
Hannibal. That's television. Show me his movies.
Well, Hannibal, the Hannibal TV show is very, very well.
Yeah, so he did Hellboy, Pacific Rim. Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of
Spy Kids. That's it. Spy Kids.
It's yellow. Yeah.
Jackie Brown. Oh, you see that?
Jackie Brown. That's interesting. Spawn. Desperado. Ooh, that makes a lot of sense. Desperado.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to do a I want to get 1 second. I gotta find it. Do you know Arrow Video?
Yeah.
Slightly off topic. They recently, I don't know if it was recently released, but 1 second. Desperado or Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Upon a Time in Mexico trilogy. They recently released a box set of the Mexico trilogy.
No way, actually.
Yeah, no, and I really want it.
Nice.
And I want to do a Mexico trilogy. I've only seen El Mariachi and Desperado. I have not seen Once Upon a Time in Mexico, so
it's been a while since I've seen any of them. I think I've seen all three, but the only two Arrow I have Ridley Scott's Legend, which the director's cut of that movie actually would warrant a discussion. I have a lot of fun with that movie, and then I have Audition, Takashi Miike's Audition, which is not a fun movie. But yeah, I love Arrow. Arrow is probably. There's also the Draft House Blu-ray series, which is really great. God, I need to get back into boutique Blu-ray. I got into my vinyl kick, but there's just so much care into actually remastering. And another thing I love about Guillermo is he's such a champion of that, of just remastering old films and preservation of film. Like you'll see him with interviews and a bunch of other movies in the collection that aren't his, and he's such a thoughtful person.
Yeah, no, he really does like care about the art form for sure, and that's definitely another element. He's a big nerd like us, you know, type deal. But yeah, sorry, back to the movie. I feel bad as far as I want to try to like kind of get through the plot a little bit quickly, just because like it's getting late and I do have work in the morning. So
no worries, dude. Let's do it.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But I'm just gushing over Del Toro too much, you know.
I know.
So basically, yeah. So the fawn gives Ophelia this mandrake root thing to help heal her mom, who she's come down. Oh, she had like I thought it was a miscarriage at first, but like her mom was just bleeding a lot, and clearly something's wrong with the pregnancy. And her mom gets really sick, and the fawn gives her this mandrake and gives her the instructions, weird ass instructions of like put it in a bowl of milk
and put it underneath the bed,
and then feed it 2 drops of blood every morning, and your mom will get better. And she does it. And something I find really funny about the first you see her dropping the blood, I was like, oh, okay, she gonna like cut herself with a knife or whatever. And she literally just like cuts a hole in her finger with her nail, and I'm like, you're not gonna fucking do that for yourself. Like, that's your body would not let you do that, but she does it anyway. But before she puts the mandrake under, we get introduced to what is possibly the most iconic monster in this movie. It's definitely the monster that I was most familiar with in media before watching it, which is the Pale Man.
Yes.
Also played by Doug Jones. So it's the second task. She has to go down, retrieve this knife with this magic chalk zone chalk. and there's she's giving the instructions like, you're gonna see a big feast. Do not touch any of the food. Which I was like, I was a little mad at Ophelia because I'm like, listen, I know all that food looks good, but do you see how scary that creature over there looks?
It's big spooky guy. But I mean, like, you have to think about, like, I thought the same thing too, but you just have to think about how desperate she is. Like, it doesn't directly imply that she's starving, but you can make the assumption based off of her response to the fawn. Like, yeah, she's definitely not treated the best. Like, there's definitely neglect in there, but I would.
Yeah, at this point, she's thrown in the dungeon too. She's not allowed to sleep with her mom.
Yeah.
In the same bed as her mom.
Yeah.
Hello, still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, yeah. But basically, yeah. So this creature, she eats 2 grapes off the table as she's walking out, and it wakes up, and starts chasing, and it eats two of the fairies that she are helping her out.
Incredibly gruesome too.
Incredibly gruesome, super scary, just terrifying stuff. Terrifying monster design. What do you think of this creature in particular?
That's another testament also to Doug Jones's performance too. I mean, there's got to be some symbolism for like the eyes without a face, or face without eyes, that my brain's not wrapping its head around right now. But just once again, Doug Jones's performance, just the body language and just the hunch, like almost just it's something I can't really describe it. It's just this like completely not ethereal, just like demented posture, and it's like every single skeleton you've ever seen, but like how a skeleton would really move around, or like a body going through rigor mortis. It's just disgusting.
Yeah. He's such an incredible physical performer, and this character is but it's definitely one where like I recognized his jaw. I'm like, that's Doug Jones's jaw. I know for sure. But anyway, I just kind of want to run through this particular plotline real quick. So Mercedes and the Doctor are both spies for it's like the Resistance, like the Captain Vital refers to them as the guerrillas throughout the whole movie. I don't know what particular group they are, but the good guys.
Yeah, they're definitely not fascists. They're definitely not fascists.
Solid dudes, just the Inglorious Bastards out there in the woods.
The Inglorious Bastards before Inglorious Bastards. Did this come out same? I know we got to strap for time. It's got to be around the same time with Inglorious Bastards, but anyways.
It's definitely before. Yeah, Inglorious Bastards 2009. Pan's Labyrinth was.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Don't have a hard end time, but just definitely want to wind down.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, what's it called? Yeah. So Mercedes and the Doctor are spies, and they're basically sneaking food and supplies out to these soldiers, which they're hiding out in the woods in this cave. And I just want to talk real quick about the scene where there's the Resistance soldier man who, like, his leg is like infected, like he's got a big nasty wound, and like they have to amputate his leg, and the build up to it is just
yeah. And then, like, he's just, like, the briefing, he just swigs alcohol. And instead of just doing that bullshit thing where they cut it right before they find a way to cut before they make the literal cut, he gets one cut into it, and you just hear that crunch and the severing of meat. Oh, God.
Yeah. It's just real rough. You get that visceral reaction. Yeah. But, let me see. So, yeah, at this point, shit's kind of starting to hit the fan. What's his name? What the fuck? Captain Vital, Nazi stepdad, finds the mandrake under Mom's bed. Mom gets a lot better. He finds the mandrake under the bed. He reams Ophelia about it, and he throws it into the fire. And we get like a really unsettling scene where, like, as this mandrake is burning, his mom is starting to her mom is starting to curdle up in fear. Curdle up in pain. And yeah, it's really messed up seeing this mandrake is screaming, her mom is dying. It's real sad.
Yeah, and then the shots of the blood stains, like it's all from Ophelia's perspective. You don't go inside the room, which I really like a lot. It's just at this point, it's all the driver's seat of her horror, and you just hear from the distance that she died. You don't actually see the body.
Exactly. And at this point, around this time, the Doctor gets found out as a spy. It's also around this time that the stuttering soldier gets kidnapped and tortured and asshole Nazi stepdad describes like all the torture tools that he's going to use to torture this guy, and it's like a really unnerving scene. Like there's a lot of like, especially in the second half of this movie, it just kind of ramps up in the. There isn't even a lot of like gore. Like you don't necessarily see a lot of the horrific actions being done, but all of the implications and all of the build up to the action is like what causes the unnervedness for me.
Yeah. Can we talk about a little bit too how many people get like shot in the head in this movie? Like the double the double taps.
Absolutely. Yeah, Captain Vital is not, he's quick to just shoot someone who's pissing him off.
Yeah.
100%. Like he shoots the hunter and the hunter's son like it's nothing. Like he's pissed off about it. And he tells his underlings like, next time search these fuckers better so I don't have to deal with this shit.
Oh, that scene too. I know we're bouncing around, and it's when he like literally like just brutally murders that one was just a farmer. He's a resistance fighter just in front of his father, and oh god damn.
Yeah, 100%. What's it called? So yeah, around this point, yeah, the mom dies, but the paramedic, the doctor is still at this point, so they bring in like an army medic guy. They get the baby out, and it's a boy, and then basically around this time, Mercedes gets found out as a spy. And there's kind of like a great sequence where she talks about like the reason why you were never able to figure me out is because I was invisible to you. You just saw me as like some frail woman. And I thought that it was a really nice metaphor, or just like a good way to like, yeah, this guy is just gonna assume that all people who like he views as inferior to him
are gonna be
just
inferior.
Yeah, just aren't gonna be a threat. So obviously he just wouldn't think about her as being someone who would betray him. And there's a scene where she's about to get raped, and there's a fucking Chekhov's knife that I didn't pick up on earlier in the movie. Like I completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where she's in the kitchen, she cuts like a vegetable or something, and then she rolls up this knife like into her like skirt, like bottom of her shirt type deal. And I completely forgot about it, and it was totally foreshadowing. And I'm usually good at catching up those Chekhov's things. But yeah, so the fawn tells Ophelia to bring him the baby, and she steals the oh, also during that scene where Mercedes conflict with evil Nazi stepdad, she cuts him in the face.
Yeah.
Like, stabs him all up.
Another great effect too. With him like this little sliver, the Joker-esque, not even scar, just open fucking mouth.
Yeah, the Joker of mouth, and he starts to like sew it closed himself.
Ugh.
And I saw the behind the scenes on that too. It's like basically they made like a little like jetted out prosthetic that looked like his face was open, and the actor himself like did, it wasn't like CG, he actually did that little thing with the prosthetic, like, and he had to make sure he didn't hit his own skin.
Wow.
And yeah, no, just like really gnarly looking scene, just like gnarly performance. But yeah, while he's doing that, Ophelia busts into the room, steals her baby brother, which I don't think her brother has a name. I think it's just my brother, the baby.
I don't think so either. Well, that kind of lends itself a little bit well into like towards the end of the movie where they talk about the names, especially right before Vidal gets murdered. Fucking brutally, fuck that dude. He just said, "Oh, make sure the baby knows my name," and they just say, "No, your name is nothing. Baby won't even know it." It's probably best they don't reveal it, because that plays into that a little bit more, like thematically. Just this baby will have nothing to do with you. You don't name him, he won't be associated with you. That's all.
Yeah, this child is not your child type deal. But yeah, no. Speaking of that, we get a little thing with the fawn where we kind of like the fawn is like, yeah, we're gonna have to kill the boy. Well, actually, he says we just need a little bit of blood from him, but Ophelia doesn't trust him. Like, no, I'm not going to let you hurt my brother. I'm not going to let you hurt this innocent baby. And then Ophelia gets shot by Nazi dad, which I expected her to be brought back to life, but we get like a little cut together, like a little bit of a vision of her in the afterlife, quote unquote, and she's like back in her kingdom, and you're like, is this just what she's seeing while she's dying?
Yeah.
or is this like really happening?
And talking about
I
that budget earlier, that whole set is incredible. Like just
yeah, no, looks sick.
the golden like massive high, like I'm gonna call them high chairs, just the golden chairs and the fun in the foreground too, like underneath the table or underneath all of them in the throne room, and then when everybody like there's the balcony where everybody's cheering for their princess, and oh, that's a great last scene too. But it's also just a harrowingly like tragic when you realize what's actually going on.
Yeah, super sad, especially as like Mercedes comes back for Ophelia because like I said, they have a Ripley and Newt rapport kind of going on where like after her mom dies, Ophelia definitely sees Mercedes as like her surrogate mother type deal. But yeah, no, so Captain Nazi Man, like we covered that. He is surrounded by the rebels, the good guys, and he gives the baby over to Mercedes, which I found it really interesting that they gave this character that has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Like, we've just seen him commit human atrocities throughout this whole film. He has one little moment of like human decency where I thought what he was going to do, I thought he was going to hold the gun up to the baby and be like, you let me go or I kill the baby, which would be in line with his character, like in my head. But he's like, nope, he gives the kid over and he like gives up. He accepts it like, yep, you got me. I'm dead.
You see, I think it's a little bit more of like a selfish, like a selfish means for it, because obviously, like, yeah, maybe my legacy would live on this kid, but his entire like his last words aren't about the baby; they're about him.
True.
It's like, hey, like, make sure this baby knows his father, knows his father's name, and that's it. Like, the legacy is not the child that lives on. It's him like being a memory in his child, and maybe he considers that his last heroic act is saving or just giving his kid over willingly. But it ultimately comes from selfish motives.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like that's a common thing with like a lot of. I feel like a lot of Del Toro's villains are like dudes who are awful but who think they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Like Prince Nawada in Hellboy 2 also feels that. A diseased vampire man son in Blade 2 also has that vibe. I forget the character's name.
I'm blanking too.
I've been wanting to rewatch Blade 2 for a while. I feel like I rewatched First Blade every once in a while, but I think what it is, I have Blade 1 on Blu-ray and I have Blade 2 on DVD, and I think I just need to upgrade Blade 2. That movie deserves.
That was one of the first movies we watched together.
Oh, wow.
It was because you quoted some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill. And I asked like, what's that from? And you said Blade, and then we watched Blade.
Hell yeah. Briefly, quick little. You seen Deadpool Wolverine yet?
Not yet. No, not yet.
Damn it. Okay, never mind. We can't talk about it. Fuck. Okay, so yeah, the end of the movie, Nazi Man gets killed. Ophelia's in the underworld. And it's kind of, it feels, I was a little disappointed at this point because I'm like, oh, like, I feel like they're trying to tell us that the whole thing was in her head, especially when Nazi Dad comes around when she's talking to the fawn and he doesn't see the fawn. It definitely was kind of implying to me that like, oh, this is like just her way of dealing with this whole situation.
Yeah.
But I was watching them behind the scenes afterwards, and Guillermo del Toro was kind of just talking about how like, he feels like in a lot of Western writing, and like a lot of like kind of what you think of as like film and like Western storytelling, everything has to make sense. Like everything has to have like an exact cause and effect. And something that he loves about fairy tales is that like you don't necessarily have to have that logical consistency. It's a lot more about what you feel. And he used this example of like this like story, this like little mini story that he was told as a kid was like, if you catch the devil while he's sleeping and pull a hair off his back while he's sleeping, you pull a hair out, then the devil has to grant you a wish. And he's just like, now, why is that? Like, what about taking the devil's hair? Like, let's see, it doesn't fucking matter. That's just what the fable is.
That's just what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's something that like he feels like people don't appreciate, that like you don't, it's not necessarily about something being ultra realistic and like something making perfect sense. It just has to like be able to deliver the story and the lesson that you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
And after seeing him talk about that, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like it doesn't matter if it was real or not. It's like about it. It's still, if it was in her head or if they're really magical creatures, it helped her get through this journey. It helped her save her brother. Like,
Right.
it, you know, it got us where we needed to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add, man. Well put. I love this movie.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Del Toro. Um, no, thank you for suggesting this one. It's been a while since I've watched it. It just reminded me how much I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry we kind of like rushed through
No,
a lot of the plot points of it.
I understand. Honestly, I would have talked about
Yeah.
this movie for another like 2 hours.
Yeah. I definitely am gonna. I want to rewatch it with Del Toro's commentary because he had on the Criterion Blu-ray. It's he has a solo commentary on there, and I just want to hear his sexy voice explain to me all the cool inspirations he had for this movie.
It just makes me want to watch everything else he's done.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to go back into his filmography. As far as where this movie ranks for me amongst his other films, it's kind of tough. For me personally, I think Shape of Water is probably my favorite film of his still. Just as far as like it's all of like the tributes to like classic films and just like it like being such a adult fairy tale and the themes that it deals with. I just always get something new out of that movie every time I watch it.
Yeah.
And it might be the case with this. It's going to depend on rewatches, you know?
Yeah, it's probably number one for me. But my other two are like just thinking about it. I go back and forth on Shape of Water, but I actually love Nightmare Alley. It definitely drags
I
at
haven't
points.
seen it.
It definitely drags at points, but it is definitely an ode to like old, like not necessarily gothic, but old style like magic, and pretty much playing on the ideas of like what entertainment is or how to capture an audience, and it does it in a very like cynical but also with a little bit of a heart kind of way, but also it's just so detailed, and there's great performances all around. You see, I gotta stop talking because I won't stop gloating about Guillermo del Toro if he kept me going.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Let's go to our props. Just pick a prop from each movie that you'd want to have, and then I've got a new segment. And then we'll wrap up.
Cool. Definitely David Bowie's Bulge.
You want just his dick taken off,
Yes.
and that's it for the movie.
Nah, for me it's the worm. I just a little like a little doll worm. There's something about the Cockney accent and just like the big eyes that send me every time I see it.
That's a good pick. I want the lying and telling truth doors as like doors in my house. From Labyrinth, that's certainly that one.
That's a good one.
And what do you want from Pan's Labyrinth?
I went back and forth on this one. I was actually getting ready to answer this like on the car ride home from work. I think I'm just gonna end up going with the knife, the golden knife.
The fancy knife.
The fancy
yeah,
knife.
That's a good one.
It's probably worth a lot of money
very-
too. Pay my loans, Guillermo.
Indeed. Yeah, it's a very good one. I'm trying to decide what do I want from it. I like the look of like a lot of the books. Just I like the was it the book she finds behind the furnace? Like I really like the art and the look of that book. I think that'd be a nice little coffee table piece to have. Yeah, that's my pick. Cool. So we have this new segment that we're introducing. What's up?
Oh, just new segment. Like, oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. Called What's a Movie, which is ties into the website, which by the way, folks at home, if you're listening to this, midnightmoviegang.com is live and up, and you can go to it and interact. And if you want to if you want to interact with the prompt this week or suggest new prompts to us, or see what we picked broadly, you got to go to the website and go to the What's a Movie page, where basically every week we're kind of just going to answer like a movie prompt. The ones that I have up right now, the main one is what's a movie that you will always finish no matter where you started from. That's not the prompt we're about to do, but that's an example of the one last week. Let us know what you would pick for that prompt or the one we're about to do. So the prompt I have for you, Jack, which I totally didn't just come up with while we were talking. What is your favorite non-English movie where like primarily it is not English?
My favorite non-English movie. Easy. It's The Seventh Seal by Ingmar Bergman.
Rock and roll.
Yep, that's a movie that every time I watch it, granted, when I was raised pretty religious, so it's so it kind of hit me close to home there. Bergman was always incredibly cynical when it came to that, but also him growing up in a religious household adds a lot to that. But also it's like darkly funny. All the performances are great, and one of the most iconic portrayal of death ever.
Cool. Yeah, no, my pick, it might be a little bit of a cop out, and that I also just like kind of, I'm sure I could think of something else, but like I came up with the prompt while we were going. I'm gonna go with Fist of Fury,
Nice.
Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury.
Mm-hmm.
In the original, I believe it's Cantonese dub. Just down to like that movie is just incredible. Like Bruce Lee is just he's like Joseph said in our review, he's like Michael Myers in that movie. He's just like an unstoppable force that can't be killed. And it's a great flick. Check it out. But yeah, no, good picks all around. And I'm gonna find out what Joseph and Courtney pick, and we're gonna update the page. So folks at home, let us know what your pick is. What are your favorite non-English movies, and maybe we can talk about them on the show. And go to midnightmoviegang.com to see what Joseph and Courtney picked. Yeah, this has been Midnight Movie Gang. It's currently 9:20 p.m. Night Movie Gang. Jack, thank you so much for being on. I love talking to you as always.
This is an outlet, dude. I love it. It reminds me of freshman year in your room trying to avoid our roommates.
Rock and roll. Hell yeah. Next episode. Now this episode I don't know if I'm going to put out. So this weekend we're recording the Alien Romulus episode. As far as like it's my most anticipated movie of the year. I don't know if this one will come out before or after that, but maybe if you have time you can come on to that one, or I can get your input on it.
I didn't even know it was coming out.
It's coming out this weekend, bro. I bought my tickets last week. I've been hyped. But yeah, stay tuned, listeners, for that. Yeah, this has been Midnight Movie Gang. You can follow us at Midnight Movie Gang on Instagram, and we're at Midnight Movie Gang Podcast on YouTube. Please go check out that. Join the Patreon, all that.
Give them
Have
money.
a nice night.
Give them money.
Give us money. Get us some new microphones.
We still have to fund me flying up to Columbus to record a live episode and play GoldenEye. So
exactly, we gotta do the GoldenEye live stream.
We do.
Thank you so much for listening. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So, here we go. The childish frustrations and complexes which the police are searching for James Thomas, believed to be the lover of Miss Williams, and her partner in the horrible murder of Walter Grant. Everybody, and I'm here to hold on. Oh, please tell me where he's going. Please tell me. I don't know. How long is my how open could I got in here? 3 tickets to Albany on 6 o'clock train tonight. For your face. Special agent. Special agent.